What is up, YouTube? It's me again, right? So I finished reading A Canticle for Leibowitz, and let me tell you, this bad boy was good. It's at first I was a little confused if the author, Walter M. Miller, was like anti-Catholic. But then after I got into it quite a bit, I realized that he was not anti-Catholic, right? It's just a very unique perspective. If you had to ask me like what the big idea, the takeaway from the book is, because it's classic sci-fi, right? If you had to ask me what the like driving point was, it was, to me, a juxtaposition between the timeliness of faith and the timeliness of man. And what I mean by that is that like it talks about multiple different like apocalypse that happen throughout history, starting off with like a post-World War II apocalypse where we just basically nuked all of humanity into the dust. And so it's broken down into three sections: Fiat Homo, which is let there be man; Fiat Lux, which is let there be light; and then we got Fiat Voluntas Tua, which is your will be done. Those are basically the Latin, translations to English. And the first part is like, I don't know, couple of generations after the World War II, nuclear holocaust. And it's about this monk who's out in like this monastery in Utah, and basically like the whole monastery's shtick is that they collect and maintain texts, primarily like scientific texts, and like they live in an age of ignorance, right? They ignorance is in not being able to read, all of that, illiteracy is almost something to be proud of. And the only people who can read or are like at least mildly intelligent are the monks, because they live in a monastery and they're taught how to read and write. And a lot of the book is in Latin. So if you're not familiar with Latin, or Latin's really, something that you've forgotten since high school, it's not necessary to know or be able to translate Latin that easily. Just because it's not essential to understand what's going on in the book. But I mean, just Latin to English translator on Google, and it'll have interview. Oh, too easy. So the first portion is about a monk, and basically they're in this area where this scientist Leibowitz was. He finds some like a collection of like blueprints and stuff like that, and basically he's the one that gets Leibowitz sainted, basically. And so the monastery is Saint Leibowitz's monastery after that. Before it was just a monastery kind of like honoring him and doing that. It talks about like bookleggers, so like bootleggers, but with books and stuff like that. And then like, they were copying texts and stuff like that. Really, really interesting. And then Fiat Lux is, a couple of generations past that, and it's about the monastery at that point. And they have this guy who is a academic. They're in an age where like there's actually like one or two colleges, and this really well-known, physicist, I guess. He's not really a physicist because they don't really have that advanced of technology to be able to be a physicist, but that's kind of what he does. He comes to the monastery and kind of like goes through all of their texts and realizes that they have like a gold mine, and they've just been sitting on all this stuff, and the monks aren't educated in a way to like be able to use the information, but him coming from like a natural science background is able to like glean all this great information from their library, and their memorabilia is what they call it, and it's like their library of all the stuff that they've collected. Let There Be Light is because one of the monks actually builds a like generator and a arc lamp. Basically, it's pretty cool how they go through it. But like, there's got these guys like turning this big wheel which spins the generator, and it makes this little, like arc lamp and everything. It's super cool when you get to read it. And the monks don't really know what they're doing, but the guy comes in and he's like, "Whoa, this is crazy!" So he takes that information and he goes back and then he gets back to his college, and basically they have another like revolution, or like another renaissance basically. And then the third book is let thy will be done, I guess is the English translation of it. And it's like a couple generations past that, and now they have like starships again, and they're back into this like nuclear arms race. And another apocalypse happens. Basically, we basically destroy each other. The world destroys itself with nukes again. And so it's talking about the timeliness of, the Christian faith specifically. I mean, Catholicism basically. And then also like how timely we are as humans, and that we repeat our mistakes, and like if left to our own devices, we just continue to destroy ourselves. And it's kind of that juxtaposition of like faith and science, and it's not that the like monks from the Utah monastery are, anti-science by any means. It's just that they think that it should be regulated, and that like not to destroy ourselves again. But as you can see by the end of the book, we do it again. Yeah, it's really good. It's really good. Definitely, if you haven't read any classic sci-fi, this is definitely a good place to start reading some classic sci-fi. I would definitely put this on the top of my list of favorite classic sci-fi books. I mean, the thing's only 300 pages or so, 330 some pages. So it was a quick read, but I loved it. It was great. Yeah. So I don't want to spoil the whole thing, and I don't want to give you the whole plot of the book, but definitely choice material for some classic sci-fi basically. So I finished that. I finished Crossroads of Twilight, which is book 10 from the Wheel of Time. I'm going to start Knife of Dreams next. I'm reading Jade Legacy. That's the third one, right? I'm reading that one right now. I'm probably about 25% of the way through it. I'll do a review of it. That's cool. That's what I do. I just read books and enjoy them, and I don't really get to talk to anybody about them anymore. So like, hey, you know what? My internet friends are like, hey, why don't you do some more book reviews? So hey, I'll do it. Since I just finished Canticle for Leibowitz, I'm going to be picking up Martha Wells' Exit Strategy. It's book 4, I think. Yeah, it's book 4. Fourth part. It says the fourth and final part of the Murderbot Diaries. However, here is the Network Effect, which is book 5. So, whatever. So I'll read that. It won't take me long. I'll read Jade Legacy, give you something on that. I mean, goodness. I just want to keep talking about this, but I can't really say any more without like spoiling stuff. One of my buddies who does the podcast with me, and if you're not familiar that I do a podcast, we're going through The Expanse. We've got book 1 out, and we're working on book 2 now. Kyle, he was in Catholic seminary over in Europe for a while, and we met up in the Army, and he and I talk a lot about like theology and stuff. And he hasn't read it yet, and I was just like, dude, you need to pick this up. Like, I think you would love this. He's like, yeah, it's on my list of things to read. And I was like, you should get to it sooner than later. But yeah, it's one of those books that it's been suggested to me by a couple of different sources, and I was just like, yeah, all right, I'll read it. And then I didn't realize exactly how much I was gonna get into it. There's a sequel, St. Leibowitz and the Wild Horsewoman. I don't know. It's not nearly as highly regarded as this book is. I don't know if it'll be a long time before I get to that or not, but I'll probably end up reading it. Yeah. Oh, there's a character in the book who They don't tell you for certain that it's the same guy, but he definitely hints that it's the same guy, and it's this Jewish guy, right? And he's in all three parts. Like, what? And like in the second part, he talks about how he's like 600 or some years old, and like everybody's like, all right, whatever. Like, this guy's not 600 years old or whatever, but he's in all three parts. And supposedly, he is, I almost said the wrong name. Yeah, Lazarus, the guy that Jesus raised from the dead. And since he was raised from the dead by Jesus, he can't die, I guess. Yeah, and he keeps coming back, and he comes through in all these different points, and like he's like, is this the guy that raised me from the dead? He keeps looking for like the return of the Messiah, and there's one part in the second part where he's just like, nah, that's not him. And it's just really great how he's used as a character. This is a book of the 70s, and so they use some language that might be offensive to Jewish individuals through that portion. Maybe not. I don't know. I'm not Jewish myself, so I can't say if I was offended or not. But I could see how it could be mildly offensive language. But the revelation at the end that the abbot has, it's not the abbot from the beginning or the middle. It's the third part abbot there. The revelation that he has about like how do I say it? Like about why God allows bad things to happen. It's very Catholic in theology, and there's nothing wrong with it. I think does a really good job of explaining, that, but it's coming from this point of view where like the only people who are alive that have faith are like these Catholic, monks, and everyone else is like super atheistic or at the very least agnostic. And so you don't have any like middle ground there. And so he's trying to like preach this, like message, and it doesn't come across, but like you as the reader, you're just like, wow, yeah, that's some pretty powerful stuff. I like how that comes across there. So yeah, if you're like anti-Catholic, it's still a good read. There's nothing that's trying to convert you to Catholicism or anything in it, but it's just packed full with Catholic imagery and Christianity and stuff like that. So it's not an apologetic letter. Like, it's not trying to convert you. But if you're familiar with that kind of stuff, I can see how it would be a lot more of a powerful read. Very, very, enlightening to see at least Walter Miller's interpretation of Catholic theology, especially during a time of it's full-blown nuclear war, multiple instances of nuclear war. And so, yeah, it's really good. I can't say enough about it and I can't say any more about it without like giving away a lot of the plot points. But it's definitely worth your time. Definitely worth your time. So yeah, if I'm gonna do Jade Legacy, I kind of have to do the other two, don't I? I mean, I read them. It was a long time ago when I read those, so I don't know how easily I can do a review without having read them recently. But I can give it a shot. And Murderbot, Murderbot's good. Murderbot's about a robot that is in trouble for murdering people and trying to understand itself, and kind of has this artificial intelligence thing. If you don't know Murderbot, the books are like 160 pages long. Pick up Murderbot for sure. It's not classic sci-fi, but it's good sci-fi. Yeah. So, we're doing. Well, you can't read this; it's blurry. But we're doing the Expanse series on the podcast. So if you want to hear some fun discourse about the Expanse, look up the podcast, Space Opera Radio. We're at spaceoperadio.com. You can go on to Spotify, Space Opera Radio. We're trying to get that stuff over onto Apple, but I'm not that smart to get it onto Apple Podcasts Podbean, whatever. I don't know. So we're working on that. Reading Jade Legacy, Knife of Dreams soon. So yeah, just look forward to that stuff, man. And these are it's I don't know, we're at 15 minutes. It's a short little review of Canticle for Leibowitz, but definitely worth your time. On a scale, on how many out of 5 do I give it? I give it 4.5 out of 5. Yeah, because I mean, classic sci-fi is kind of hard to. It's not modern sci-fi, and a lot of people are like, you know, don't like classic sci-fi for whatever reason, but I love it. It's good stuff. So yeah, 4.5 out of 5, or let's say 9 out of 10. Does that make it better? 9 out of 10 crazy monks in the desert. Yeah? All right. Well, until next time, back to the book.